All right, welcome back to lab number 4, where we're going to work with OAuth. Now we're cutting some corners here. We're not going to set up a full chain for OAuth, but rather showing you how to do the integration from the API proxy point of view. So first of all, what I'm going to do here is set up my Cloud Shell. It's over here. And then what I want to do is take a look at our proxies. And as you can see, we have an OAuth proxy in here. This is what we're going to be using to generate the OAuth tokens. So you can think of that being the identity provider or whatever. So first of all, we're going to go to our retail proxy. And in there, we can see that we have the VA verify key in our preflow right over here. And instead of that, what we want to actually have now is the OAuth v2 policy, right? So what we need to do first is delete the VA verify key policy from the preflow. And then we're going to add another policy in its place. And what we want to have is OAuth version 2.0. We're going to name it verify token just to kind of show us what it is that it's doing. And then add that. So now we can see that it's over here. And this is what is happening here. So the operation under OAuth v2 is going to be verify access token. That's the default operation. And that's what we want it to do. By default, it'll look for the authorization header of the request. And in there, we need to have the text bearer followed by the token. So this is often called a bearer token authentication methodology. There are a couple of things here that we don't really need, so maybe we're just going to be removing those, just leaving the operation in there. Just kind of get rid of everything else. That's basically the minimum that we can do with. Saving this as a new revision and then deploying. We only have the eval environment here. All right, so now that's deploying. Meanwhile, let's go and take a look at that OAuth proxy. Over here, so you can see that what we have here is a post proxy endpoint, token CC grant. It's a flow. And you can see that the condition here is that, first of all, it needs the URL needs, or the path suffix needs to be /token, and it needs to be a post. And there needs to be client credentials available in that payload. Then if you take a look at the OAuth v2 policy here, it generates an access token. And the client credentials grant type is supported here, so that's the one that we were checking for in the actual flow. So let's go and take a look at our application. There should be an application in here. Yeah, Joe's retail app. What we want to have here is the key for the retail app. So that's how we're authenticating against the OAuth API. I guess I'm going to export the app key to be that key. There we go. Then we're going to copy the secret as well. Export app secret to be that part. Cool. And then what we're going to do is use those later on when we're trying out the flow itself. So let's go back to the proxy and see if it's been deployed correctly. Yes, it has. Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a token from the OAuth API proxy. All right. So you can see that what we're doing here is we're calling the API OAuth version 1 token. This is a post. And we're using the bearer, authentication of the app key colon the app secret, right? So that's going to be the authentication. Sorry, the basic user authentication, and then we're setting up grant type equals client credentials in the payload, and that should return us the OAuth token from the OAuth API proxy. And that it did. So now we have a script that will automatically copy that into the token variable. It's basically doing the same thing. So that's now the new token that got generated. And now we can first call our retail API without any authentication, right? So here we're just doing a normal get to the categories API as we have done in the previous labs. And no surprise, this fails with a 401 error, right? So there is no access token given. The same thing or similar thing would happen if we would use a fraudulous token. So here we're just saying bearer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, we're going to get the invalid access token reply for that. So now let's use the token that we just generated. So here we're saying bearer, the header is authorization, bearer, and then the token value, which is the base 64 encoded token that we got back from the OAuth service. And otherwise, we're calling the same API. And what? We're still getting credentials missing or incorrect. Why is this happening? Well, let's go and take a look, right? Let's go into the debug window. Let's start a debug session in our environment. Here we go. And let's retry that. Yeah, there we go. All right. So we can see the verified token step there that has a lock on it. It doesn't show any error over here. And if we go forward, you can see that there is actually an error here in the target response flow. So it's actually the backend that is giving us the error itself. And if we take a look at the error response flow, we can see that it gives us an unauthorized invalid credentials message from the backend. And now the problem here is that the proxy works perfectly, so the client side, but we can see here when we are actually starting the target request, we can see that we're actually sending a authorization header. So by default, any headers that are received by the API proxy are forwarded to the backend. So it doesn't actually work like our backend doesn't work like that. So our backend actually doesn't want to have that OAuth bearer token in place at all. So in our case, what we need to do is we need to remove the authentication header from the request. So one of the ways that we can do that is go to the preflow of our request. And then we want to add a new policy step and create a new one. And for this, we can use the assign message policy. So the assign message policy can both add and remove headers, for example. So let's just do that. And now when we go to the policy itself over here, here you can see kind of the default options, quite a lot of stuff. We're just going to replace that with the code that's given to us. Let me just try to explain that. So what we're doing here is we have a remove part where we are removing the authorization and API key headers from the request. And everything else will be copied over. All right? So that way we shouldn't be using the authentication header or the API key for the backend anymore. That's saved. Let's deploy that. And now we have to wait for a second until that's deployed, and then we can retry our All right, now it has been deployed. So let's retry the same curl command. And now we can see that we get the categories as anticipated. Perfect. Thanks for watching this lab, and see you in the next one. Till then.